she would almost transform when she did her ventriloquism.
Melody Brooks Clark is well known for her accomplishments, one of them being the first African American to win a national ventriloquist convention. And in Lexington, her artwork spread light throughout the community.
She believed that if she was to share that talent, that's why God blessed her, because he knew that he trusted her to be able to share that talent with people.
But it's her heart that made the biggest impact.
When I think of Melody, I think of her warm, beautiful smile.
She was more than an artist. While she taught her family about her talents, the greatest lesson she shared,
her in the back, like my mom said, small in stature, but big in heart,
was one of love.
And the last time I seen her, she hugged me probably about 20 times in 5 minutes. That's the kind of love that she shared.
They say through the ups and downs, trials and tribulations, Melody always stayed the same.
Whenever I saw her, she could bring joy. On a sad moment, on a day, we could talk about anything. We might be sad, but I knew through it all, it would end in love.
As they look through old photos and admire her work, it's not just her memory and signature that is left behind. It's a legacy that they're proud to have been a part of.
I want people to remember her by living life, loving life, and staying strong through life.
Small in stature, but that heart, huge, that talent, humongous, and the love.
In Lexington,
Whew.
Julia Sandor,
Wow.
WKYT.
Wow.